Good morning, everyone. My name is Oscar Parham, and I have the privilege and honor of overseeing the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority's training program. And on behalf of the entire NJRA team, we want to welcome our speakers and our registrants to a phenomenal webinar today. Just to give you a little bit of background, in our CRED, which you probably saw when you're registering, stands for Comprehensive Real Estate Development Training. We used to have this brought in person over a 2-day period. So in this webinar format, we're doing it over 2 hours, but we're going to cover everything that we would normally cover in the 2-day period. So we're very excited about this. This is one of our most exciting webinars we have every year because it covers, real estate and redevelopment from pretty much concept to maintenance and actual sell of it. Our speakers that we have today are going to share with you some of their best practices and how they overcame some of the challenges in bringing this project to fruition. We're going to be talking about the New Park Estates project. We've got our developer. We've got some various representatives that are going to, once again, share some incredible information. So at this time, I want to tell you, thank you very much. Welcome. Appreciate you carving out some time. We look forward to the chat session as we kind of progress through the webinar today. So I'm going to have Mr. Craig Sawyer, our lead instructor at NJRA, introduce our first speaker for the day. And thank you for participating.
Good morning. Good morning. I have the honor to introduce a good friend of New Jersey Redevelopment Authority and the Training Institute, William O'Day, one of the most influential and knowledgeable economic development professionals in the country, especially in New Jersey. Currently, Bill O'Day is the Deputy Executive Director of the Elizabeth Development Company, considered the best administered enterprise zone development company in the country. Also now serving in his 8th full-time term, he also served as county commissioner in Hudson County and is the chairperson of the Public Resource Committee. He's also a member of the following committees: the Task Force on the Homeless and the Liaison to the Workforce Investment Board. Bill O'Day has received many academic recognition, including having won the silver medal as an orator at St. Peter's Preparatory School, where I also attended. Bill graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree from St. John's University, where he also won key awards as a top student in criminal justice and in political science. During Bill O'Day's spare time, he has authored 2 plays and 6 screenplays. He's also the author of the novel, The Legacy of Hagerville. So without further ado, I pass it on to Bill O'Day.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for that introduction, Craig. It was a little long, talking about things I did in high school. It brings back a lot of memories, but makes me realize how old I am. And I'm actually the executive director at EDC. I got promoted, I think, like 10 years ago. So I'm going to talk a little bit about generally the overview of redevelopment and a redevelopment project. So first, if you're going to do a project, there are 4 essential components that a person needs. You have to own or have site control. You have to get the project approved or entitled as to what you can build on it. You've got to figure out or have the funding or financing available to do it. And then you've got to build it. So the redevelopment process is one that can be initiated by the government, but can also be initiated by the government at the request of a community or neighborhood group, or at the request sometimes of even developers. Under that process, the city council must first authorize a redevelopment study, which means the planning board and the city planner must undergo a process to determine that area or block or whatever is the defined area for the project is an area in need of redevelopment. It has to meet certain statutory requirements in order for that to occur. If it's only government-owned property, it's not easier to do, but the notice requirements are always to all the property owners in the area. And if the city plans on acquiring anyone's property, that is part of the notice and discussion process that goes into the redevelopment planning review process. After the redevelopment study is done, though sometimes done simultaneously, is the development of a redevelopment plan. What a redevelopment plan is the zoning that will take place there. So it overlays the existing zoning. So when you have a redevelopment plan adopted for an area, that allows you to have zoning where you may normally need to go to a board of adjustment if you're going to get a variance for an existing, plan that the zoning for that particular area. After it goes to the planning board where there are public hearings, it has to go back to city council. The city council has to then adopt by ordinance a redevelopment plan. So there's public input both on the planning board side as well as on the city council side, because it's an ordinance requires a public hearing. Once you've adopted a redevelopment plan, the city then has the authority to designate a developer. What does designate a developer mean? Simply means give site control to. So if it's property that's owned by the government can do a designation of the developer, and you'll hear a lot about that today on this particular project, where and how that process occurs. You'll get a lot of input as to how RFPs and sometimes RFQs before RFPs are developed for developers to respond to who are interested in developing a particular site. And then once that process occurs, they are able to select a developer and negotiate a redevelopment agreement with that developer. The redevelopment agreement, as you'll hear more about today, allows basically the blueprint for how the site will be developed. Everything from when it's going to be built, what is supposed to be built there, how much they will pay for the land or property if it's owned by the city, when they will pay for the land. In some cases, the city would let a project in phases be taken down in phases. So if I'm going to build a 4-phase project, I don't buy all the land up front. I pay the city as I start construction on each of the phases. All of those issues are part of a negotiation process. Redevelopment agreements often include, as now sometimes redevelopment plans include other requirements. It could include an affordable housing requirement. Many cities' redevelopment plans now require an affordable housing requirement if you upzone. So if you were allowed to build 100 units an acre, and now a developer wants to do 200 units an acre, the city will require that 20% or 10% of those units be affordable. And they will define affordable as 60 to 80% of AMI, 80 to 120% of AMI. It's all within the discretion of municipality. They may also put requirements in a redevelopment agreement as it relates to the construction, whether you have a percentage or goal of a percentage of local residents that would work on the job, a percentage of local contractors that have to be women or minority owned or minority women owned vendors. So different cities have different requirements that they put into all of their redevelopment agreements and often put into their redevelopment plans. Once someone has site control, even before a redevelopment agreement is actually completed or finished, because of timing perspectives, they may begin the process of at least applying to the city planning board to get the site plan approval. The site plan approval will tell them what they're allowed to build within the plan. So you're allowed to build in this case, it's going to be townhouses, but you may be allowed to build a 7-story building with 120 units with X amount of parking spaces. Once that is approved, but usually at the same time, you are securing your financing or your funding for the project. In fact, generally, you want to get a good level of commitment to your funding or financing, unless you're self-financing the entire deal, before you even start the process. Because if you want to build a 50-story building and no bank or lender will finance a 50-story building, you will waste a lot of money going through a redevelopment process, a planning board process, etc. And then last but not least, once that's done, you're able to get your permits and you're beginning and do your construction. You'll hear today that you have a developer that also serves as a GC. That's a very, very important aspect. If you can be a developer that also serves as your GC, you will save a substantial amount of money because you're not paying overhead and process to an outside general contractor. You'll also be able to control your timing better. You'll be able to control many different aspects of the project. And builder developers tend to be much more successful than developers who have to rely on outside GCs and construction managers to do projects. That's kind of a general overview of the redevelopment process.
I have the pleasure to introduce Alberto Goncalves, who is the founder and chief executive officer for Life Assets. Life Assets is a North-based full-service development company and privately held real estate investment company. Under Alberto's leadership and his 20 years of experience in the industry, Life Assets has developed a reputation for creating residential, retail, and mixed-use communities of lasting value in some of the state's most desirable locations. The company has helped to develop and rehab more than 1,000 rental and condominium units and 1 million square feet of commercial properties throughout the northeastern United States. Life Assets has a diverse portfolio of successful projects, which has earned them the reputation, the respect, and the trust of leading municipalities across the state. Also, we have Eduardo Rodriguez, who was appointed director of the Department of Planning and Community Development in April 2014. As director, he is responsible for overseeing various boroughs: economic development, HUD entitlement, construction, planning, zoning, affordable housing, and central licensing. Under his tenure, he has implemented a municipal vacant abandoned property registration system and a special tax lien sale for abandoned properties. He overseen the allocation of $30 million in HUD entitlement dollars to various nonprofits and affordable housing developers, and has worked on over $1 billion in redevelopment projects and have mobilized and modernized the licensing and permitting process. Mr. Rodriguez graduated from Rutgers University in 2001 with his bachelor's degree in economics and later attended New York University, where he received his master's degree in accounting global business. And wanting to continue his education, he also attended the Rutgers School of Law, where he graduated in 2010. Eduardo also served as a certified municipal finance officer. So our two panelists, along with Bill O'Day, will be Alberto Goncalves and Eduardo Rodriguez.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thank you, Greg, for that intro. All I realize is mine is the shortest out of the other three over here. So I got to add some more stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let me. My name is Alberto Goncalves. Thank you, Craig, and thank you, Bill, for speaking before me. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself and where I come from. Both of my parents migrated to this country at an early age. I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, and a year later I moved over to the city of Elizabeth, which is why this project has been real special for us from the beginning. Not many developers could speak about redeveloping a major site in your city, not even near the neighborhood. So this project, it has been special to us because we grew up in a neighborhood of this major project, and it was one of our first major projects that we done ourselves. Prior to this project, we did numerous partnerships with other developers to learn the game and to understand how redevelopment process work. In addition to prior to this project, we took numerous training and work with a lot of consultants throughout the years to finally able to get it right. And we're still learning. This project consists of 2 acres, and ultimately we was the video didn't show you, but we was able to complete 24 individual lots, which 23 lots are 3 stories, 2 family homes, about 3,400 square feet per building. And the 24th lot was a 10,000 square feet commercial building, which was just sold. All of these 23 lots that were sold were to first-time homeowners. And the way we got there, we will love to explain how we got into the designing process. This project started back in, I want to say, it started back when the city decided to put RFP out there, and we was considering to respond to it. It was a interesting time. The national economics was a little shaky, and we were not sure if it was the right move to move ahead. We're builders by trade that turn into developers, and as a builder, you take, you have a minor risk to take because you take the lender takes a lot of the risk. As a developer, you take a higher risk, but the rewards could be a little bit better. But the risk we were able to take worked out for us. So we will speak a little bit more about the process as well. The city of Elizabeth has been very helpful for us. I want to thank the Bill there at the EDC right from the beginning. The organization, Elizabeth Development Corporation, was very helpful to us in giving us information and understanding how the redevelopment process works, as well as giving us a good synergy to always think ahead. I want to definitely thank this organization, ANGRA. I attended numerous of these classes, and definitely it's a place to be at, so you can have a better understanding on how redevelopment works. Director?
Sure. So no, this was definitely a very, very exciting project. Alberto doesn't know this part, but like I said, this was a site that tried to get developed even before. So this was, a second try over here at this site. During the boom in 05, 06, 07, they did try to redevelop and do this project. That failed, and it took another, 10 years to get the ball rolling again, to even start this project. So, like I said, this was a huge success in an area that a lot of people didn't think could be done. So for that, I give Alberto a lot of credit for that, and also the patience. I was 2 years on the job, still learning all of this. I had no prior experience, so when I tackled this project over here, I probably had less experience than most of the people here in this room, but it was it's a laborious process. It takes time. I came from the private sector thinking all of this would take on rather quickly. It does not. You learn patience very quickly during the redevelopment, what do you call process. So
Absolutely. So let me share with you a little bit of timeline of the process. January 3rd, 2017, the city of Elizabeth issued a request for proposal for the redevelopment of South 2nd Street. When that request came out, where I went, to my partners, Don Sosa and Max Plumman, and I told them about the project. And right from the beginning, they was very excited to be part of it. They trust in the vision and they believe that the site could be redeveloped. But it was not a typical site to consider due to the fact that it just had some type of contamination. So it was a brownfield site. So that was an issue. We was a little bit of concerns with what's going to happen with the contamination, or has it been clean, and what type of satisfaction with the DP it had. So there was a lot of concerns that we had to go through in a short period of time to know if this was the right project to respond to. Ultimately, we responded to the project, and after long discussions with our design team and amongst ourselves at the office, we were able to come with a beautiful design that made sense. Initially, we designed this project to be a multi-family building. I believe we thought it would be best to do 84 units. We were thinking of doing some type of affordable housing or workforce development, and after considering all of the additional units coming into the city, we decided to pivot a little bit. We figured that this site was, although it may be really desirable for myself, I'm not sure if it would have been desirable for others. So we decided to rethink this. And after understanding the neighborhood, we wanted to do one thing different, and that was to create home ownership. We believe that having home ownership in any community means important because home ownership means that people could create wealth. So we decided to move forward and take a shot to try to see if we could buy out the block and create home ownership. We ultimately designed, as I mentioned, 24 separate lots. We was able to do 23 lots for home ownerships and one commercial business. The site it was very interesting because when we started to see if we could get some financing for the site, a lot of lenders had concerns that we had in the beginning. The site is adjacent to right across the street of one of the largest refinery in the Northeast. In addition, one side is the largest refinery in the Northeast, and across is a river connected to Staten Island. So we're about maybe a few hundred feet away from Staten Island, and right across we're located near a large refinery, and the site is right here in the middle. It gave me more ambitions to move forward. I knew that if we weren't going to do it as a team, I'm not sure if any other developer would have had the right vision for it, like how we had it. We know the neighborhood and we wanted the best for the neighborhood, and we believe that homeownership was the ultimately best idea for the site. So our designer, our architects, our engineer, we decided to move forward. And after numerous sit down with the municipality, including Director Rodriguez and other city consultants, we were able to provide the right design to present this to the planning board. And on March 8th, 2018, we finally got our planning board approval, and we started to uh, continue moving forward with our construction drawings and other entitlements. this project, we was able to close with the municipality in November 2018. And when we closed with the municipality, we was able to receive permits just a few months later, going to May 2018. That's when construction began, in May 2018. It was exciting for us, and it was exciting that we was able to move forward. However, there was a lot more stuff to get done before we actually started doing the foundation. The site had a major issue prior to us having it, and we had to do a lot of what is called clearing of the site and do a lot of site work to the property. Our experience of building in the past helped so much due to the fact that we were able to understand this a little bit more than others, and we were able to make phone calls to other developers and get the right answer faster. So that kind of helped out. Everything worked out with the site clearing, so we could prepare the site to start going into foundation and moving the project forward. During the construction process, we ran into something called the COVID-19 era, which we're still in. And that was a very challenging time for us because during the project, we had every project in the state of New Jersey had to stop construction. Although the project was in a redevelopment area and we had some of the first few houses under contract, we had to stop the project. Ultimately, the state of New Jersey was able to release some of the projects, and it was up to the municipality if the contractor and the developer had a safety protocol to proceed the projects forward. So we were one of the very few projects to continue moving the project forward. We kept the project moving forward at a timely fashion and on a safety fashion, and we kept moving the project forward. But during the construction process, we had a lot of delays due to the fact of other issues happening with the pandemics. In November 2019, we had the first 5 houses finished, about 90 to 95% finished. And that was a big impact for us because we were able to communicate that to the future home buyers how the project is going to look. It was hard to explain to a home buyer a piece of large dirt and a vision of a property. So that was a big impact, and they was able to see how we designed all of the buildings a little different and how beautiful the ultimate product was becoming. That kind of helped us out moving the project forward. We ultimately finished the 23 lots within 24 to 28 months. And we were able to do that, as a great teamwork we had. We worked with a lot of good subcontractors and all of the partners. We all been through this before, so that worked out well. I'd like to mention that collectively, between me and my other 2 partners, we have over close to 60 years of experience, and that kind of helped out with a lot of issues that arose at the project. We were able to overcome a lot of issues that could have been very costly to other developers, and that kind of helped us moving forward. Director, you could feel free to jump in between. And
no, you are doing a fine job. I mean, I think you're commenting from your perspective over here. So yes, I mean, mine is a lot more before. So keep on going. I'll jump in at the end. It's all right.
Yeah.
Good job.
Awesome. So that was it. We decided to. Yeah. So again, going back to the design part of it.
But on this one, let me jump in at least and say, because before, like I said, before we transfer the property over to you over here, this site, again, is a contaminated site. It was an old manufacturing warehouse from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So it was definitely contaminated. And early 2000s, again, there was a subdivision of this site. It was 25 by 100 lots. Couldn't get the environmental done. City obtained these properties through tax lien foreclosure, and they were contaminated. That's why nobody bid for them at the auction sale. So our first piece was, obviously, before we could do anything, we really needed to get this site cleaned up, right? If someone loses this via tax liens, out in the marketplace, they're not worth even the property taxes on it. So we were able to team up with the US EPA to help us clean up, which I think we can go into that further. But to do that, remember, it was about 30 something, 25 by 100 lots. We first had to merge all the lots together and put it for one lot, then apply to the EPA, and then subdivide them afterwards also. So there was some steps on our end over here, even to get the site cleaned up, that we had to do. And again, adding to the whole redevelopment process.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, the whole during the whole process between the RFP, us responding, and then us getting awarded, and us, sitting down with the municipality to make the project make sense for the community. One of the biggest impact I learned is that you always have to have community involvement, and that's one thing this project represents. One thing in our hearts was to make a difference in the neighborhood, and we was able to accomplish that. And this is the reason why this project was successful. I recommend to all aspiring developers or builders out there to make sure that anytime you seeking of doing a project, you gotta have the neighborhood and the community in mind. You cannot go into a development just thinking of yourself. It has to make sense for the neighborhood and for the community. This project represent that. We could have possibly put more houses or develop other things, but I don't think that for the impact of the neighborhood, it would have gave it as what we ultimately did here. The uh, the economics impacts for the municipality moving forward was phenomenal as well. The municipality is able to get home ownership, able to get future tax revenue, and the impact to the families coming into the neighborhood are unbelievable. Um, the As of today, we just as of I believe last month, as we mentioned, we've completed and sold the last 24th lot, which was a warehouse. That warehouse, we took a little bit of time because we were waiting for a buyer. Finally, when we got the buyer, we was able to build it out for the buyer. So we have a owner buyer who's going to operate his business in the lot, which is awesome. Um, the the construction process, just to speak a little bit about the construction process, it was it was very it got very complex during the COVID-19. We were typically we understand GC very well, and we work for other developers in the past as general contractors. So that was an issue how to manage the project and construction. The issue was that we was faced with an epidemic that we didn't know how to deal with, and neither did our partners and our subcontractors. So we were every week trying to figure out who was coming to work, who was not coming to work, what type of materials coming in, what type of materials not coming in, and it was very challenging to deal with that. So that was some strains that we learned, and God willing, we don't ever get into another epidemic. How we're coming out of it. Um, the municipality's been very helpful with us after they awarded us. The planning board uh, loved the project. We got unanimous approval in the planning board, and everything the municipality, uh, uh, all of the assistance they could have done, they done, and we appreciate and we're very thankful for that. I think that covers the basics of the project.
Yep.
Back to Oscar, please.
We have a question in the chat from Eric. It actually asks Alberto, can you give us some examples of challenges that your team overcame due to your expertise?
Some of the challenges that okay, some of the challenges I think I covered, which was the epidemic, and we was lucky enough to overcome it as a team with my partners, and in our office. Some of the additional challenges we had, which I'd be happy to discuss now, was the financing of the project. We came in this project thinking that we could get financing, and the financing that we thought we could get was not an option, which we just didn't understand. Um, the Some of the lenders, just to speak a little bit about the financing and when you're dealing with the redevelopment, some of the commercial lenders like to drive by or visit a location. And I'm mentioning some regional banks. I don't want to name them by name. And a lot of regional banks were afraid. They were afraid for a lot of reasons. They didn't understand the neighborhood. They thought the neighborhood might have been maybe too urban. They didn't like a large oil refinery is adjacent to the property. They didn't like how in one part of the block was a lot of commercial. They were very afraid. It was something that they're not used to seeing. Um, and there was very they had challenges with giving us term sheets. Then ultimately we got a term sheet from a lender, and the lender sort of backed off. So we were able to not move the project as we thought. But that didn't stop us. What we did, we decided to double down when we came to the challenges. We was able to sell some of our other assets and basically finance a project. Majority of the project was financed with our own money. We was able to close on a lot, and we just got financing for 5 houses. All of the rest of the houses we was able to do that with our own funds, and it was really it was a risk that we took, but as developers, you have to take risks in order to make sure that the development happens and your vision comes true. So we're excited about that. You know, we were able to discuss amongst ourselves, and after strongly, you know, doing the feasibility studies, and some of my partners' backgrounds are brokers, and the other partner we all have ultimately skills that we was able to decide to move this project forward and not let this project be on standstill because of financing.
Okay, I have one question for Eduardo, and it says, how difficult was it to overcome the contamination issue?
The contamination issue, at first you have to get hire someone to see what the issue is before you can even start tackling it. So on top of putting an RFP out for the developer, I had another RFP out for the wonderful licensed site remediation, LSRPs. So what do you call it? And I've had experience with them on private side and also public, but that's a whole different conversation. So first we had to go there and get an assessment on there to see if it is feasible, because obviously the market forces over here, the property was lost due to the environmental, and you can hear millions of dollars, couple $100,000. Here at the end of the day with the LSRP, he came in and gave us it's a good LSRP, gave us a pretty accurate number of what he thought the estimated cost would be. And from there on, it's either the city put up the money or you go out and try to find funding for this. And being that it was a difficult area, we were able at the time to apply to the EPA for grant money, a substantial amount of grant money. The city did have to put up a portion also. I think the match is 10 or 20%. But those, being that the issue was not as large as could have potentially have been in terms of dollars, and finding those grants really, made this project feasible from our standpoint and also from the private side also, because if it's contaminated, if it was not remediated, this project would have never happened. And as you can see, Alberta already put a significant amount of equity in and would not have taken over the property if it wasn't clean.
Okay, and I have one more question here. It says, generally, what percent is equity?
So I guess the question is asking is, what was the TDC? What was the total development cost, right? Every project has a total development cost, which is the acquisition price, the soft cost, the construction cost, which is all of the hard costs. After you understand what's the TDC, the total development cost, then it's a percentage of equity that a lender requires you to put down. For this project, we decided to acquire the land. We acquired the land cash, and then we got financing for a few houses, as I mentioned, for 5 houses. So that was a little bit unconventional. Typically, when you're doing a multi-family, let's say if I would have decided to move forward with the 84 unit, typically a lender will want you to put, let's say, an average of 25% of the total development cost. And this part was a little bit different. So in this part, we was able to give the lender collateral, the property free and clear, and the lender was able to give us construction money as the construction happens. If that makes sense.
Alberto, I think the gentleman earlier was asking some of the hurdles that you overcame. So, for instance, did you do construction during COVID? How did the construction? How were you able to do it? And how much time did you lose in your construction if you had to do any of it during COVID?
The time that we lost, if you want to add up the days or the weeks, probably maybe about 6 weeks. I couldn't really say because we're the team, all of our subcontractors really took this project seriously like we did. So they were all working full force. That's one good news. The other good news is we were allowed to move the project forward in construction. So our other subcontractors, they typically have other projects to work with as well. They was on hold, but our project was able to move forward. So they was able to kind of double down on some of the guys. So that kind of helped us as well. So that was the pros and cons. The cons were that we were pausing construction, and some of the trades were paused. But the pros was that the contractors that were able to move forward, they didn't have other work because the state put a pause on construction during a period of time.
And you were pre the hike and all that. You had already locked in all your material costs, so you didn't get hammered the way developers have gotten hammered in the last year and a half on the cost of lumber, steel, etc.
Yeah, correct. So in 2018, during the pandemic, the construction material, the inflation didn't hit real hard like it hit right now. So if this project would have happened right now, it would have been a whole different case scenario. So our material cost pretty much was kind of like the same. Now the last phase of the project, that's a different story. But the first, I want to say the first 13, 14 houses, we were at regular pace. And then we got beat up more at the last phase. But at the same time as we was getting beat up, we also was we were able to get back to regular speed as well.
Alberto and Eduardo, this just a quick questions. I think through, as you can see, as we're moving forward, there are a lot of moving parts and very dynamic relationship. And it's a question for both of you guys, how did you manage the communication between the city and you're having to change and be creative and coming up with and working with, how did you manage that? How did you guys keep each other updated?
Bro, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Nothing. I'm pretty accessible especially with people who have a track record here in town and everything like that, and Alberto does. I mean, I'm good with text message, email, phone calls. Always felt comfortable. Like I said, if I needed something to talk to him, still to this day, texting him at 7 p.m. at night or calling during the day. So it really was back and forth. I'm the mouthpiece here for the city, and I have to work with obviously the construction, the administration, the finance people, and everything like that. So it was always open, back and forth, and forthright also. I can do this, I can't do that. So that does help.
The director is being very humble. So we have OCD, Oscar. That means that there's we work a lot. I don't have hobbies. My hobby is my work. I love what I do. Right. So I wake up 4:35 in the morning. I'm working. I try to escape from personal time from my house to work again. So we always work. We wear many different hats, and we have a great team at the office. So we just I'm very thankful to all of the teams at the office. They did like a huge job with getting the materials to, there's a lot of things that happen when you're doing a major construction. Your material has to be on point. Your subcontractors have to be on point. Their material has to be on point. The labor, there's a lot of moving parts to this. And everyone we work with before, all of our subcontractors, so we already have a working relationship, as well as our development team. Our development team is a lot of, right before we put the shovel in the ground, is a lot of work in between that. Starting construction is a fun part, right? Being a build to rent company and a build to own company is one process, but doing all of the entitlements, that's fun, and could become challenging. The city of Elizabeth is one of the municipalities that I could say is fun to work with, but there's a lot of municipalities out there are delayed, and it's not that they have delay issues, but they're sometimes a lot of people are new to the positions, or sometimes they have too much work in the pipeline. But
I think also, Bert, and I'll go on that. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing here, but I'm basically like a one-stop shop over here. I do the numbers with the finance team, the permitting, the planning and zoning. So, I mean, I get phone calls on these projects here, the negotiations for obviously the redevelopment agreement, for the RFP, for the planning and zoning board, oversee that too. And then when they get permits and everything like that, I hear the complaints from the developers and also the inspectors. So I really take these from the beginning until it's actually done. So, sometimes that could be bad, and I think sometimes that could be good also.
That's a huge advantage. Well, that's a huge advantage because most towns, you have to.
I was trying to be humble, but yes, what do you call it?
No,
Yes,
you
it
have
is.
to go
No, definitely.
That would slow a project down. In your case, there's one person you go to. That person may tell you yes, may tell you no, may tell you got to make some changes, but you that centralized ability to deal with one person with 8 aspects of a project saves tons of time and tons of money.
And that's one thing I've learned here is getting a clear and concise no on the quick run. They may not like it, but at least they can move on forward. Dragging, developers along is not good for anybody.
Yeah. And in this project, and to all of the developers or aspiring developers moving forward, when you do partnership, make sure you do partnership that you work with someone that understand the process. For this particular partnership, I have my brother Ricardo Sosa and my other partner Phil, and we all worked together on other projects. So it was, we all was in line, right? If one states something, we're not disagreeing. If we do disagree, it's for the positive of the project, and we all were just there to move the project forward. We all had the same ambitions, and it was fun to ultimately work with us three because if one of us got hit by a bus, the project was going to move forward either way. So that was very exciting. Another hurdle we had, I remember calling for inspection, and the inspector was like, "Okay, no one could be in the house." And there was contractors fixing the house, and we forgot the inspector was arriving because when you call for inspection, they don't give you a time frame. They said you're scheduled for Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 3 o'clock. And the inspector saw people and walked out. We had to wait a few more days for they could come back. But my small things like that, it was fun to deal with. But outside of those, COVID hurdles, everything else we were ready for. Like we've been through this process before, and we had a lot of fun moving this project forward.
And Alberto, you might have touched on this before, and I apologize if it might be redundant, but I remember in our initial phone call, in our actual meeting, how many times did the actual design and layout of your project change, or is that part of your assessment when you're going into a project that you're going in with an idea to build this, but then as you go through your feasibility study and you do more evaluation of the site, your design and overall layout changes?
Yeah, I want to quickly give credit to Bill on something, right? For many years, I always go to the organization, to Bill's office, unannounced without an appointment, and he always sees me. Thank you, Bill, for that. But one thing I learned from the director, Bill, is Bill always mentioned, anytime you develop a project, make sure you have the community first in your heart. And in all my developments, and we've done a lot of developments in New York City, throughout New Jersey, and from that office of Bill Day, it came out so much knowledge that I got. One thing I always know is always to try to keep the community at heart. The first vision we had of 84 units, we decided to do that because everyone was doing multifamily buildings everywhere. We've done a multifamily building for another developer, and we say, okay, it's time for us to do our own. Let's just get it going, right? We've done smaller multifamily buildings, but we was okay. We want to go close to 100. But then after seeing what was coming, we decided to do something different. We said, let's as I mentioned before, let's do something that's economic and makes sense for the neighborhood and the community. So when we thought we had something, we went back to the municipality and we said we're amending something, but it's for the better of the neighborhood and the better of the community. And we were the challenges we had after we figured out that we wanted to divide everything, and we still wanted to make sure to give a little bit of commercial space there, right, for that part of the neighborhood. Was the driveway, right? Because typically you just do a typical driveway. So we wanted to make sure that we wanted to add more parking spaces. So we're going back and forth, sitting with the municipality consultant, Harvard consultant, and how are we going to shape the driveway. And that was like about 2 separate meetings because we were arguing, and the municipality didn't want to back down. And they were like, no, we want more parking and more street parking. And we were saying, well, we want more parking for the homeowner. Ultimately, we was able to. Ultimately, the municipality won, and we came in and we gave them. We designed a driveway for their liking, but in between that, another course we had was how wide was going to be the houses. Whether the lot is going to be 30 by 100, 35 by 100, 40 by 100, or 25 by 100. In Jersey City, or a lot of
don't let it fool. Every developer wants 20 or 25 by 100. He sounded very humble there too, but you got to call it spade a spade.
He was moving.
Yeah, and we wanted to see what makes best. So we, after going back and forth, we was able to make something that made sense.
A happy medium, which is what development is.
Happy medium.
And it's interesting, and I appreciate you guys definitely sharing some of your insights. Because part of this world of real estate and redevelopment, I was talking to a developer last week, and he said, say, Oscar, I'm always asking questions, and he said, you guys should put together a course on, are municipalities ready for emerging developers? And so, what I see here in this project is definitely best case scenario, and so I really appreciate your insights. And I did ask about the communication piece because, as we said, we're in a climate, we just came sort of, and I guess you can almost argue the case that we're still in a pandemic. We've got interest rates. We have a lot of dynamics that are going on, and it directly impacts the development and the sustainability of projects at the end of the day. And so I think that having everyone who's part of this on the same page, and at least having those open communication and honest conversations, keeps things moving along. And we all know that, in this space of real estate and redevelopment, it takes years. It potentially takes years to bring something to fruition. And if you don't have those relationships, if you don't have those candid conversations, if you're not on the same page, as you mentioned, having to change the design elements, you initially weren't thinking about doing it this way, but you were able to compromise. Is definitely some best practices, I think, for those on the call who are thinking about getting into developing, and those that are developing, that are having challenges with municipalities, to also make that part of that relationship that you have. So definitely appreciate that. We're about an hour into, and I think we covered project design, sustainability features, the governmental approving process. Why don't we take just a little bit of a break right now? We've got another hour queued up, and then if everyone is okay with that, we will jump into talk a little bit about the project finance, as we mentioned. Alberto, how you sort of, without the details, just how you sort of structured it. Maybe some aspects of it that you had to be a little bit creative. We definitely appreciate your insight in that area. So if you guys are okay, I think if Benitra, do we have any more questions that we can fit in? Oh, your microphone.
I'm sorry. Yes, we have a question here that says, what was the role of the US EPA in clearing the contamination?
They're the ones, they have a grant process to apply, and they were the ones that had the pot of money to basically pay for the cleanup on this site. You know, but for what do you call old school legal term, but for EPA, this site does not get developed because they were the ones that brought the money there.
Okay, and then we have another question that says, given the economic climate, would you recommend starting a development company? If so, what would be the first step to take?
Whew,
That's
that is a multi-layered company. What do you call question?
I would like Bill.
That could take 60 minutes easily.
Here's what I would say. First thing you need to do is start small, because
Absolutely.
lessons are expensive, and people that have tried to get into development and start big have almost always failed, because you're going to learn the same lessons if you buy a piece of property and put a 3-family house on it than if you're going to buy a piece of property and put a 100-unit building on it. So you should start learning your lessons in a small way and don't bite off more than you can chew. One of the points that Oscar brought up earlier was about the municipality. There are some municipalities in the state that have great sites to develop, but they're not developed. You know why? Because of the government structure that exists there and the lack of the capacity or ability of those individuals in the government to know how to get development done. So anyone looking at development, if you find a great site that's been sitting there a long time, it could be like here where there are environmental issues, or it could simply be that there's a government there that's not going to be cooperative and doesn't really want or know how to get a development done.
No, Bill, that's true, and I would say any developer, and I mean I paid mine on this and that. We all hate soft costs, obviously, but I'll tell you, hire good professionals. Talk to people, talk to your colleagues, get out there, because they may be more expensive up front, but when you don't have to redo something 2-3 times, they wind up being cheaper also. So do your due diligence on the professionals who you hire.
Yeah, I would also like to add is, don't be afraid to partner with another experienced person, right? Don't take this challenge, and it could be trauma if you learn too much all by yourself. Get in another experienced person, add value, right? Whether you already have the land, partner with the developer. Don't try to do everything all up front. It took us many years of trial and error to understand where we're at. We're not happy all of the lessons we learned, but it was a value added to us. So if we could have partnered with more people early on in our career, we would have done that. We would have got here at a much faster pace. So I would like to add that part, and also keep training yourself. Right, organizations such as NJRA is very important. This is the reason why we are here today, to play forward to you guys. You have to continue getting educated, continue networking, and continue being in the mix. But ultimately, if you can add value to someone and partner with someone, I think that will ultimately, in the long term, if you're looking at 5 years, your career could be much faster if you do it that way, compared to you doing everything yourself and taking all of the lessons learned yourself.
So you're offering to do that to all the participants today? That part of the package? They can just call you to partner with you?
Well,
Bill, I love it.
I'm gonna throw this out here. One of the things that we do, we will provide your information. So you might get a couple of questions from our registrants today, but if as we kind of progress through the webinar today, if there are questions, definitely you can filter them through NJRA as well, and then we can see if we can get those to Alberto, to Bill, and to Eduardo to kind of get some feedback. And I think it's very important today, and I think is Alberto, thank you for sharing the training portion, because I remember you at some of the earlier workshops, and one of the things that we try to do here at the NJRA is to bring experts together to share best practices and the challenges. And I think the training portion, I hear all people that are successful are constantly in the training mindset, constantly to learn it today. So thank you for definitely sharing that at the end of the day. Everyone here, first of all, thank you again for registering and attending all of our webinars this year. Coming up September 15th, this is going to be an exciting one. It is titled The Nexus Between Cannabis and Real Estate in New Jersey. We've got some phenomenal speakers that are going to be participating at this one coming up. And we're going to cover quite a few aspects of the relationship between this growing industry in New Jersey, as well as how it fits dynamically in the landscape of real estate and redevelopment. So September 15th, make sure you register for that one. Coming up October 20th, we've got understanding and incorporating tax credits in your project fund strategy. So we know the importance of having tax credits. We know the importance of having funding sources for development, which are key for moving projects through. So definitely do not miss that one. Put that on your schedule. Once again, that is understanding and incorporating tax credits in your project fund strategy for October 20th. I am reading my notes here, and it is going to be, both of these courses are going to be from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Don't miss that one. And then we are going to conclude the year with a webinar. There's no question you need to put this on your schedule. It's titled 2023 Economic Outlook Along with the Emerging Trends in Real Estate Development, and we're incorporating small business. So this is going to be a 2-hour webinar that we're going to have experts in industrial space, the commercial space. We're going to also talk about what we're seeing going on in the marketplace as far as equity and investors that are getting into the space of purchasing houses and doing multifamily units. So we're going to basically cover, I think, a totally comprehensive overview. Once again, a real estate and redevelopment that's going to lead us into 2023. We'll have our experts share where do they, we were talking about interest rates earlier. Where do we see interest rates? Where do we see the supply chain? Do we see tightening? Do we see things loosening up? Where are there some opportunities in the space of real estate and redevelopment for those that are looking to explore some other avenues as well? So, and we're also going to incorporate small business, because as we know, small businesses are the lifeblood and offer sustainability to most of our communities in New Jersey. So that's going to be a 2-hour webinar, and that is scheduled for December 8th. So make sure you put those 3 webinars. I'm going to say that again. We've got the nexus between cannabis and real estate development, September 15th. We've got understanding and incorporating tax credits in your project fund strategy, October 20th. And then we're going to conclude the year with 2023 economic outlook along with emerging trends in real estate development and small business. And that is scheduled for December 8th. So put those in your calendars and register. I also want to take this time, at the Training Institute, we provide a service that many of you are familiar with, and some of you might not be familiar with, is our municipal consultations and our customizable trainings. So for those municipalities, we also do customizable training. So you could be a for-profit, a nonprofit business. You're an entity that's in architecture. You've got a legal law firm. We put together 2 different products. The customizable training is you've got a specific topic in real estate and redevelopment. It could be tax credits. It could be looking at, how should you understand the dynamics, of new market tax credits, what is LIHTC? We'll work with you and put together an agenda based on your needs, and we'll come out and we'll do specific customizable training. Currently, we're doing it in the virtual space, so we can set a time that's very amenable to your schedule. On the municipal consultation side, we work with our sister agency, DCA, but we'll basically come out and we will spend time with you and talk about if you've got a specific project. It can be a project that you're thinking about. It can be a project that's, in development, and you just need to have experts in specific areas that could give you some feedback about your particular project. We would love to facilitate that conversation. So once again, municipal consultations and customizable trainings, we provide that service at the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. So I think I'm finished with my list of things. We're going to take a few more minutes, Venitra, and then we will queue up our speakers and get into the project finance, and then talk about construction, sales and rental, and then the current status of Alberto's project. So thank you very much. And so in this section, we wanted to, once again, Alberto, talk a little bit about the project financing piece of it. But you don't have to dive into the details of it, but just give us sort of how you structured it. Did you have to get creative and how you were looking at the funding, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, the project overall was about $11 million project, Originally, we wanted to go to a bank and to finance the whole entire project. As I mentioned before, we're interviewing a few different lenders to try to get a term sheet, and most of the conversations with the lender was going well, and then for one way or another during the conversation, it just didn't turn out well. After they either saw the site or there had one lender decided to go public in that quarter and decided to change the whole matrix, and they decided to avoid the term sheet. Um, so ultimately, we decided to take a step back and to double down on what we're going to do, and so we decided to finance the majority of the project ourselves. We were able to find a lender, and we negotiated with the lender that if we bought the piece of land, can it be able to finance the construction part of the first few houses, and which is very unorthodox because typically you get
Hmm.
the whole entire project and the finance, and they tell you to put 25% down or 30% down. If you're experienced, maybe 20% down. So we decided to do a little bit different. We decided to I believe we pay about the acquisition cost. If anyone would like to know, we pay about 1.4 million, which was the appraiser at that time of the land, and we were able to acquire the land and then provide a free and clear land to the lender, and then was able to give us the first three houses. Um, from there, we were able to continue the project moving forward. We were able to get some of these houses under contract and able to put additional equity to us. So that was a process for us. Let me speak a little bit about the typical process. Typical process is,
Okay.
as I mentioned, you take the whole $11 million. A lender would tell you to put 25% down. Your money got to go in first. The lender will hold some of their interest payments on reserve, and they will probably fund partial of the land and give you some of the construction. That's the typical way. Uh,
Hmm.
and lenders like to look for experience. So I'm not sure if maybe they feel like we didn't have the experience, or they just didn't like that the site was formerly a Bronxville site, or as I mentioned, they just didn't like that the oil refinery next door. Um, I went back to a lender recently, and I told them the success of the project,
Hmm.
and and it was honest. One lender told me they thought it would never work. And I guess maybe because they're located in Bergen County and they just
Hmm.
didn't understand Elizabeth. So I gave them some factual status about the MLS, every house that comes on the market, how fast it sells, and how Elizabeth is a vibrant city, and it's a although it's an urban city, and yes, there is crime, it's a very vibrant city, and the economics are strong. But we were faced with those challenges, and we were able
Hmm.
to believe in the project because we're from the area and we understood the project. I have to be honest, if this was another uh, uh, municipality that I'm not as familiar with, I
Hmm.
probably would have thought twice about the area and would have listened to the lenders.
Hmm.
You know? But because we're developing this municipality before and we've done other projects, numerous of other projects, we you couldn't change our mind. We knew what we had, and we believed that this project had to move forward.
Are you, as and not to get into, we're in July, getting into August. We know all things interest rates drive spending, lending. Are you are you surprised a little bit about the dynamics that are going into the interest rate increase? And are you a little worried about how does that fit into some of your projects that your go for projects that you're working on right now?
Yes, yes. So we see about 10 to 15 projects a month that
Hmm.
we're pre-underwrite or we review or we talk about. And a lot of those projects, we have very strict guidelines in what we decide to move forward on.
Hmm.
We're everything we do is on a worst case scenario. So when we underwritten this project, we had the worst case scenario, thinking that the rate's going to go up. We didn't
Hmm.
know there was going to be the increase of value that just been happening the last 24 months.
Mhm.
But we're very worried. So I'm not sure if I'm the right person to ask, because we always think that the earth is going to fall, and that's very important when you come into these projects, right? I see some proposals, or some developers approaching us with the best case scenario.
Mhm.
And as you know, Oscar, this best case scenario is far in between. So we like to make sure that we foresee it. The interest rates, I think that whether the interest rate goes up and down, the
Mhm.
project, you have to underwrite a project um, based on not just the future financing of the project, but
Yeah.
to make sure that the project is economically strong enough to carry on its own, right? If you get into a project based on an interest rate, you're not going to make it, right?
Gotcha.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So when we do our underwrite, when we do all our underwriting, we just make sure that the project makes sense. There's a lot more stuff that goes to it, a lot of other analytics and a lot of other decisions. But that's overall, if I could talk to you in an elevator, it just
Mhm.
has to strongly make sense. But the rest,
Eduardo, would you agree with that, or?
Regarding the financing, yeah, obviously at the end of the day, you can have all the approvals, you can have everything in place, right? What do you got? The numbers have to make sense. And obviously you do want to budget conservatively, but obviously too conservatively, someone else goes in tighter. So, right, that's where I think experience comes in. But yeah, I couldn't agree with Alberto more. If you're pricing this because of the low interest rate or just based on the interest rate, you're not going to succeed at all.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Could we jump into a little bit of conversation about the construction? We've got some, and we've just got Alberto got one question interesting question from, we have one individual, we call him our Iron Man, who attends everything. So Marcus had a really good question. He said, I'm just going to read it what he wrote. He said, how do you manage to control your general and your subcontractors on this project? And then what are some of the challenges you've maybe faced in dealing with your subs and your generals?
as we mentioned, we are a licensed builder and licensed general contractor. So, majority of our subcontractors for this project we work with in other commercial projects. So we already have a understanding on what we expect from them and what they
Hmm.
expect from us, right? So the management was, and anytime you get speaking as a general contractor, anytime you get
Hmm.
any type of architectural drawings, right, you want to get an estimate and a price point on what the construction cost is gonna occur, right? Meaning what's gonna be your cost, what's gonna be your material cost, what's gonna be
Hmm.
your all of your sub costs. And once you understand the construction budget really well, you narrow it down to what subcontractors you're going to work with.
Hmm.
In every trade, we practically have about 3 subcontractors that we
Okay.
work with at any given time. So it's a little bit of a tricky question for us, because we already have we have close to some of these contractors. We have almost going to 2 decades experience working with them, and they've been growing as well. So we've been growing with them. Um, but
Could you?
management is more of some of these subcontractors. We have friendships. Some of them
Mhm.
are new, meaning they've been working with us for as little as 3 years ago. And we, like in any challenges, there's always going to be challenges, but we're always work through them, right? A contractor maybe is held up on another project and he's supposed to start drywalling on
Mhm.
Monday. He can't, you know, is how do he communicate that to us ahead of time, because we have
Okay.
a strict timeline. So this is where the experience come in, and we try to talk to the general contractors, to the subcontractors, and to be as honest as possible with us.
If you had to share for an emerging developer who's getting into the space, and you've got a project and looking at generals and could you give us maybe three things that are on your mind, as a general contractor, that they should be asking as they source this portion of the project, that you would say that if I don't get if they don't speak to me about this, they're not the right contractor for the job.
Yeah, yeah. Just experience. Ask them have they ever worked in that region or that area before. That's number one. Number
Mhm.
two, get some references, right?
Mhm.
Everyone, don't go to a general contractor because he's the cheapest, right?
Mhm.
That there's a multiple saying, but the cheapest is not always a good idea, right? Um, so that's important, right? We check on references, making sure that all the references is there. Um, and the third one I like to say is have a talk with them, have a sit down, get to know your general contractor, right?
Mhm.
Um, General contractors often they take too much they could chew, right? So they have multiple projects or they try to work on multiple projects at the same time, and maybe they get overwhelming. So find out how much projects they have going, right? Really find out how much projects they have going, and make sure you have a good agreement, right? That
Mhm.
agreement that you have with your contractor, I recommend having an attorney review it, right? He's going to propose an agreement with you. There should be clauses in an agreement. There should be time frame, right? So that's as a general contractor. If I'm going to another state, that's exactly
Mhm.
my defaults, right? That's what I would look for, um, and that's just I could have a whole session about that. I just really have to put more thoughts to that.
No, definitely, definitely. And you touched on something, really briefly, and I know we didn't probably make this part of our overall conversation, but the legal aspect of working with your attorney, his or her, as you're kind of going through this entire process with the numerous agreements that are going to be made and signed and amended and adjusted, you know, who do you, or could you share with your experience in regards to how do you work through the the legal aspects of what you do in development?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, every attorney is not the same, right? I want to start off by saying that. You need to get yourself a good attorney that understand redevelopment or understand planning process, right? They've done it before. Because every attorney, you can get a personal injury attorney and approach him to help you represent you on a major development, right? I recommend people in this call to go to a public meeting, go to a planning board meeting in a township you want to develop. Don't just go once. Go there for a few months. You will see the same attorneys being there. Those attorneys understand what they're doing. Maybe interview them. The legal process of it. When you're doing this after a while, and again, you always is an on learning
Hmm.
process. But you know, for most part, I like to say is that we're hiring really good attorneys that they have the best interest for us, but also we also sometimes that could be good, sometimes that could be questionable because a lot of time attorneys shy you away from a project, right? So they're going to tell you, do you understand that there's a big risk? They give you all of the scary parts.
Hmm.
And I've been part of projects that I had another major project a little bit larger than this that we completed, that you had an attorney telling the partner this is a bad project, and I'm trying to explain to this guy this is the right project for you, and that's the attorney job to explain all the risks to them. So you have to it's a give and take. You have to trust and take the advice from your legal counsel, but at the same time understand that if you want to be a developer, there will be a little bit of risk that you might have to take.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We are in, let's see, we've got a couple more. Benito, do we have any questions? Let's see what we have here. Well, I think there's one at the bottom here. And I think you might have touched on this a little bit. How did you manage to increase project costs due to COVID? And did the city release any additional funds?
The city didn't give
Not
us
that
any.
I'm aware of. No, I think the only thing is, and I admit I got a little creative over here and I ran it by in here, but reading over all the things during COVID and everything like that, there was some exceptions for redevelopment areas
Hmm.
because I had some time with the state. I discussed it here internally, and again, maybe because this is the flexibility that we have here with the inspectors and everything like that. And as long as everything was COVID safe, we were okay. As long as the developers were for the redevelopment areas, right? Because the rest were stopped. So we really, with that, worked it over, and we tried to do as much as we could. They did, because we had about 3 or 4 sites actually that did move forward. Alberto's on that one. He was able to work at the pace that he wanted to, but he did have that option at least because of redevelopment area. If not, he would have been unfortunately at home thinking about work but not doing any work. So
Thank you for that. Let's move into the sales and rental portion while we've got the remaining time. Talk about a little bit, Alberto, if you can, about your marketing plan. You mentioned earlier about how you were structuring the sales of the units initially by doing a few. Could you tell us a little bit about your thought about, okay, so I've developed a project. What's my marketing plan? What am I thinking about from a leasing strategy?
Yeah. So again, this was teamwork. We had a great broker that came and represent the project. We worked with the agency called Floorstone, and it was a great experience working with the broker and her team. And they took the marketing efforts forward. And some of the marketing tactics, what they did is, they put a lot of renderings throughout the construction sites. They did a lot of they answered a lot of preliminary questions that other agents had regards to the oncoming project. So they took time on that. There once the first few houses started being developed, they took a lot of time to do open houses because this was for sale; it was not for lease. So
Okay.
typically, a homeowner will buy this multifamily house, and they have the option to lease the second floor and live in the first floor. That makes sense a
Okay.
little bit. So they
Mhm.
were, they did a great job on that. I'm sure there was a lot more stuff they did, more marketing they did to the region to attract other people
Mhm.
in the area. Um, there the first impact to anytime you're doing development is you think that the 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 immediate neighborhood will come and be happy to buy. They always a little bit questionable. So you have the outsiders, meaning people from other part of the town, come in, and then you have the neighbors say, okay, wow, this is time to jump in. We had that going on. A lot of offers that came in where we were. It was tricky because some offers got canceled because the property wasn't developed at a fast enough time, and they lost the interest rates, or they lost their job, or something went wrong.
Mhm.
So anytime you're doing, build to own, you go through those challenges. But we were going through the whole pandemic time as well. So
Right.
people, had to verify their income through lending. But the broker was able to work through that. And I think after the marketing, after you have an offer, having a good broker, they make sure that a person closes on time by doing a good job. So shout out to Floorstone. I think they did a great job with helping this project, sell at a rapid pace.
Gotcha. Do we have any other questions? Let's see here. Um, One of the questions was, what was the absorption rate for the sale homes, and did it exceed your expectations? Since you mentioned that you were looking to do for purchase versus just leasing them out, did it exceed your expectations? Was it on pace to what you thought? What did you discover? Will this be something you do on your future sites as well as you continue with development with units similar to this?
Yes. So when we underwritten this file, we underwritten definitely uh, much lesser than what we thought we was gonna expect to sell it.
Hmm.
Just to prepare because we just didn't know the economics of what's going to happen. The absorption rate was it worked out. The first few houses we sold were sold at one number. The last five houses we sold were about 30% higher than the first few houses we sold. Every house as the community was developing, we had multiple offers. We had bidding wars because everyone wanted to become a homeowner, or sell their property to come move into this neighborhood that we created. So it was a great feeling. It feels good to be able to see your product and having a family call home. So that was a different feeling in a multifamily that you're creating workforce and marketing housing, but here you're having people actually having their home. So that was a good feeling.
And I know, I think I remember in the site you also had a carve out for some commercial space as well. Did
Yes.
you, as you were building, um, as we talked about plans changing in the design, did you think about utilizing that space for additional homes, or were you locked into that space being?
Yeah, that's a good question. All the time we were thinking about converting that, but then we even spoke with the director about it, but that would require a whole new going back
Right,
to the
due to
drawing
the
board.
right, due that it's a redevelopment plan, and how Bill had stated before, how the redevelopment plan is a layover zoning, right? So it
Mhm.
takes out what's underneath. So if they did want to do that change, we would have to go back to council, make a request to amend the redevelopment plan, then go to the planning board, make the request there, make those edits. The planning board then recommends it to council, which then takes an ordinance reading. So
And,
if
and
we
what
could all move lightning fast, it would have taken 6 months. So,
Yes.
but that's just a statutory process, right? There's
Right.
nothing anybody can speed up. That was my biggest learning curve coming into this. Is just everyone does their spot. You just have to wait now, where it makes its rounds through all the steps for the public. So that's why, and as Alberto said, it's important to incorporate the public, because at any one of those pressure/pain points, the public can come and speak out, and administration's here because they want to stay there. So that's my point over there.
and Oscar, the reason why we thought of that was because at first we were thinking of keeping a warehouse for ourselves. Then we had other location. Then we put it on the market to try to find a tenant.
Mhm.
All of the offers, uh, we didn't have any sustainable uh, prospects,
Mhm.
and then we decided to put it on the market. And when we put it on the market, no one decided to bite on it. And I'm like, this is a beautiful, a commercial space warehouse. Finally, we have one. We got an offer. I kid you not. Right after that offer, the broker must have got like 30 phone calls, within the next few months. I don't know what happened to the commercial space in North Jersey, but
Mhm.
COVID, COVID,
Okay.
COVID. No, honestly, COVID.
dude, I'm
Ah,
talking about, it was a wow. So it just happened, and everyone
And,
decided to come and
and
take
to
it.
keep it short, he wanted to change it from warehouse because the two families were selling like hotcakes. He needed to
that's
get
what I
rid of
want.
that.
Thank you,
So
Roberto. I see the look on his
like,
face.
yeah, it's okay. You're for profit, Alberto. It's okay. It's okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I think VJ asked a question: what are the license requirements to become a general contractor? Any background education required? Um, VJ, it's different in various state. In New York City, it's a different process, much more restriction process. In the county of New York City, which is Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan. In New Jersey, it's one license for the whole state. It's a different process. You could just you have to contact the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, and there's an application process, there's an insurance process that you have to meet, and there's a few questions you have to have. But there is not a there's no type of training that you
Mhm.
have to go through. Um, but in Florida, is completely different than New Jersey. So every state has different restrictions.
We've got another good question from Seth that if you guys see at your screen, it says, will you encourage a layman in real estate or construction to enter the real estate development business? And I know you gave some advice previously about your thoughts about that. If yes, what would be your basic advice regarding the pros and cons in the industry?
I think I encourage anyone who wants to do better for themselves to enter the real estate business. Um, I think in every business, the pros and cons is you have to be prepared, right? Some people some people would look at us and say we got lucky. I want to say that we were prepared. So when the
Mhm.
opportunity arrived, we was able to grasp that opportunity and understanding, right? people look at this project and they see all of the success, but they don't see all of the headaches that we had to get to that understanding of the project, right?
They never do. But yes, that is true. They never do.
as I
Absolutely
mentioned
not.
to, we took numerous of training with the organization, Oscar. We had a lot of great organizations that played forward to us, and this is the reason why we playing it forward today. We believe in playing it forward. But the cons I want to say is that you have to put in the work. You have to get educated. You have to understand. Um, and if you're willing to do that, there's going to be a lot of positive in your career.
But I love it that you mentioned, Alberto. You and your company and the people that you work. You've got your own personal mission statement, and I think that says all. As I think and I listen to Eduardo and I listen to you speak. We talk about COVID, we talk about interest rates, but it's got to be something that's driving you above and beyond all that. Your personal mission statement, and I really love it when you go back to the community. And it's hard to sometimes, I think, as individuals like yourselves, and then Eduardo and Bill, you have to see beyond what everybody's seen initially and looking at it from the impact of the community. At the end of the day, I literally, when we went to the site, I literally was blown away. I just, and I'm a little upset that I didn't get a chance to put in a bid for a new home, but it's a phenomenal project at the end of the day. And I think as Eduardo mentioned, and you did, we bring successful individuals like yourself that are doing phenomenal projects, and it's carved out a space of opportunity, and then also delivering and then impacting your community. But we were remiss sometimes in talking about the challenges and the headaches and how you got through that. Were there times, are there times in projects you've had in the past where you're just like, this is not going to work, and it's the like, but you have an internal feeling, like you mentioned with this project, that everything I can keep moving forward because I see the vision beyond what others are saying. What kind of gets you over that hump? Because what I feel from you is you face that as you have projects and challenges going forward. Because I think to Eduardo's point, we look at, and it's a phenomenal project. We think, okay, Alberto, he's got all the answers at the end of the day. What keeps you going?
Yeah. So for this major project, right, it's 2 acres. It was aligned with our mission, right? Our mission is we want to make a difference, right? And we want to make a big difference as best as possible. If 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 a project meet those guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes into the economics of the project, right? But first, it has to make what's the mission, because you could always make money in any project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a million projects out there that we all could participate in, and I'm sure we all get calls in. But for us as an organization, is what's what's the what's the pros for the community? What's the pros for the neighborhood, right? What's going to be the impact once we finish with the project? That's so important for us. After we feel like we can make an impact, then we go into the economics and we go into everything else. I like to touch that for all of the developers and aspiring developers, right? There's so many opportunities out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we need more housing, we need more workforce housing, we need more affordable housing. Um, there's always going to be an opportunity out there, right? You just have to really go, find out what your mission is going to be, and everything will fall into place, right? Between having your personal mission, right,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that, as I mentioned, that a neighborhood is going to win from your mission, right? I think everything else falls into place.
Hey, Alberto, I got to be honest. I don't think development's for everybody. I don't think everybody succeeds at it. I think more people don't succeed at it and lose money if you don't go in and prepare yourself first. If you want to be a developer, go work for a developer. Go do work for a contractor. Learn the different aspects of it, and then see if it's something you really want to do. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of commitment, and there's a lot of money at risk. A developer has to spend a lot of money, and they have a chance to make a lot of money. But there's a lot of risk. I could give you 100 people that lost their shirts after what happened in 2009. Almost none of those folks survived who owned property. Their property got taken away from them, and they lost everything that they had. So I love you, Alberta, but I don't want all the folks here going out and taking their 401k and buying a piece of property, and then a year from now trying to find where you live because they're not being successful. But I do say, if you want to do it and you're
Mhm.
willing to spend the time and you're willing to learn it and you're willing to find what your niche is, the key is to find a niche, whether that's doing multifamily affordable, whether that's doing two-family houses, whether that's doing small retail. Find a niche, stick to your niche once you learn all the aspects of it, and you'll be successful. One of the things I also see, somebody's
Mhm.
good at building a 4-story building, then they
Mhm.
want a 20-story building. They go bankrupt because the difference between a 4-story building and a 20-story building is the difference between Little League Baseball and Major League Baseball.
Definitely appreciate that, Bill. At the end of the day.
Ab-
Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Albert.
And I better said it. He said it good, Bill. I
Gotcha.
agree.
Could you talk a little bit about property management, if you mind, Alberto? Managing the property, if it's applicable to anything you've done from a project site.
Yeah, for this site, managing the property wasn't really applicable.
Hmm.
To the fact that everything, the property was vacant until it was sold, right?
Hmm.
So it was more, construction management and development management than actually property management, if that makes sense. So
Gotcha.
we didn't have a tenant that
Hmm.
we have to foresee. For property management and our other properties, we have a sister company that we have equity ownership in that we do
Okay.
property management. That alone is I recommend everyone to get a property management company to do your property management, right? That's kind of like the low bottom part of it. It could take a lot of your time. Don't try to do it. If you could do it, great. But I recommend everyone. There's a lot of professional people that do a great job and they love what they do.
Hmm.
I think they deserve every dollar they get. There's a lot of the pain that comes with that is tremendous. So I'm I like to tell people, especially if you're starting off, hire property management. You can learn a lot from them.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of good people that out there that they could interview.
Gotcha. I'd like to jump into talk a little bit about, since we got a couple of questions here. I also want to talk, if we could
Hold on.
talk.
I want to jump on that because I personally do actually property management too and everything like that. I agree with him. It is on the lower end stuff. I still think it's important for you to know and to realize it and get some, even if it's on a 2-family and the deal, just to understand what it takes to manage the properties well. So when you do hire somebody, you at least know what they should or should not be doing.
So Eduardo, I
So you
think.
don't get overcharged, right? Yeah, you don't get
What?
overcharged. Otherwise,
You
so
don't
they're
get
not
overcharged,
overcharged,
correct?
right?
Buying and selling, what do you cut? Yes, but I think it's paramount importance. You at least need to understand because some property managers, I mean, I've gone out there to go quotes. I'm like, you're insane for what they're charging. And again, I'm not saying the level of service, but it is important just to understand that what a bad tenant when they're there, the good tenants leave, the bad ones are the ones that stay. And those are lessons that you learn over there. That if you're not there in the weeds, you don't see it.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
We've got
And you know
about.
what I would say, if you're gonna do multifamily, and
Mhm.
maybe both of you guys could talk on a little bit, screening tenants, right? The critical
Oh
nature
goodness.
of being able
Mhm.
to screen tenants is the difference between having a project that makes money or a project that loses.
Bill, that I could tell you, yes. People level when you're desperate for tenants, you don't screen, and those turn out to be the biggest problems. So yes,
Yeah.
tenant selection, be patient, be very patient. I can't stress that
Yeah.
enough.
Every property management should do the minimum. The minimum is they typically do a report. They do
Uh-huh.
the criminal background, eviction background, a a credit background, and that's just the beginning of it, right? There's a income process that a good property management would look at. Every property management has good software, meaning that they're able to collect their rents and able to deposit money to you directly EFT.
Mhm.
There's every property management has a number. My phone is next to me. It doesn't ring. I don't get a million phone calls. The second you get a phone call, the second a tenant has my phone, they think they could call me 24 hours a day. So I don't get involved in that process.
That is my job, Alberto. That's my
Yeah.
job to harass you 24/7. Yes, Whitaker, that's right. Yes.
Eduardo's calling you.
Yeah. But for property management, that's what they do. They're a good company will offer all that stuff and much more. They will communicate with you. And then they will also take pictures of whatever issue they have. So when they bill you for it, you know where you're at. But I think what Director Rodriguez was saying is that making sure that you understand the process of property management, right? So you could communicate and you make sure you know when you hire a good company what they're offering. And I think that's ultimately important when you get into development as well.
Thank you for that. I definitely appreciate that. We've got about 10 minutes or so before we wrap up here. I'm going to got a couple of
Oscar,
questions.
I do have a
Oh,
prior
go ahead,
engagement at 12, actually 15. So I
Okay.
thought this was going to end at 12. So I do want to
Perfect.
drop off. And again, Oscar and Jerry, Bill and Alberto, thank you all for inviting me. This is my second panel. And like I said, I did enjoy it, especially on this massively successful project. So
Wonderful.
thank you all. If they share my contact information, please feel free to email me. I prefer email over phone calls because I get plenty of those also. But emails, I will get back to you with any questions you have about anything. Okay?
Eduardo, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate you. We definitely will reach out to you again. Thank you for your time
Excellent.
today. You know you're a busy person for sure.
Not a problem at all. Thank you all very much. Good luck.
Guys, we got about 4 minutes left for our time today. I want to, while we have everybody and Bill online, you can chime. First, I want to say, Tire Team and JR, we always want to thank you for your contributions, your candid conversations. We've appreciated Bill, Bardo, the relationship we have, and we look forward to continuing this. And I'll let you guys, if you got any closing remarks, but my takeaways from today is, you need to learn what you don't know, and you're constantly training. And this is, to Bill's point, this is hard work, but it's hard work that can be done. Going back to what Alberto said about having a mission statement and seeing a vision and having a vision that some don't see at the end of the day and seeing it through. But to Bill's point again, you have to consider the risk, and you mitigate some of the risk by talking, getting training, and figuring out what really works for you and what space you want to be in. So that's my takeaway. Alberto, Bill, you guys have any conclusions before we conclude everything in the next 3 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Alberto, let me go first because I got to go to a lunch meeting. Quickly, I agree with one of the things Alberto said earlier. If you can get a partner or a mentor, I think it's critical. Learn from someone else's mistakes so you don't have to make the expensive price of doing it. Secondly, I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially for minority and women who want to get into this business. I think that a lot of the urban areas have become much more sensitive to either wanting to give them their own development projects or to encouraging other developers to partner with women and minority-owned developers. So I think there are real opportunities out there. It is a learning process. Learning can be expensive. You learn from somebody else's mistakes is always cheaper than learning from your own. But all the courses you guys run are critical. I was listening to the litany of the ones that you have coming up. They're all valuable to anybody who's looking to get into this business.
Bill, thank you for that. And we always appreciate your participation, and we will call you again and again. So thank you for your time today.
Okay. All right, guys, take care, man. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think Bill said it best. To add to that, I like to add that as a minority developer, we love coming to our neighborhoods, to urban neighborhoods, and making a difference. A lot of developers that do happen to develop in our communities are in people that look like us, are in Black or brown people. So that alone, give me the drive to keep moving forward. Understand that your first few projects, you might have some hiccups, but don't give up. If you really have the heart for it, everything will fall into place. Don't be afraid to go to your local economic development company. Like myself, I was always doing that, and I'm continuing doing that. Ask a lot of questions, and most important, if you see a project, just make sure that you're looking at it really good. Don't say yes to a project because it looks good on paper. Just make sure you do your due diligence. And most important, continue getting training, right? Organizations like NGRA is a great tool. There's a lot of books out there you guys can learn, and just continue thinking positive, because sometimes in these projects it takes so long that you're not going to see the rewards up front. Development sometimes could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, but if you understand it's a long-term process, you will appreciate it.
Alberto, thank you. I can't thank you enough because, to your point, I remember you when you came to the courses, and when you agreed to work with us, putting this webinar together and being the inaugural event, I was so excited and just to have you participate. We at NJRE cannot thank you enough, and I will call on you again, as I tell everybody that I talk to, because I will. But I want to say, I encourage our registrants to go check out Life Assets and Consozo Development, and go to their development construction, check out their website, look at the phenomenal projects that they're working on. Thank you, Alberto, for agreeing to provide your information. As Alberto said, he's a very busy person, but we'll do our best, and I'm sure he'll do his best to get back to you. At the end of the day, I want to thank everybody that took the time to register today. As I mentioned, I know who you are, and I'm looking forward to seeing you register. And Alberto, you'll see him again at the end of the year at our 2023 webinar as well. So everyone from NJRE, we want to tell you thank you to, once again, our registrants. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Venitra. Everyone have a good rest of the afternoon, and I will see you guys again September 15th.